What if the crumbling gas station everyone mocked became the birthplace of a clean energy revolution? A single mom, armed with nothing but grit and her father's forgotten blueprints, silenced an entire town, empowered it instead. But before she flipped the switch, someone tried to burn it all down. What was buried under the floor, and why were they so desperate to keep it hidden? If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and tell us where you're watching. From in the comments, we love hearing your stories. Now let's jump into the story. Jade stumbled into the cramped kitchen, raindrops sliding from her coat sleeves and tapping onto the floor. The clock above the fridge blinked 6 a.m., yet her day had already stretched long with an overnight cleaning shift at the hospital. Her 7-year-old son Rio sat at the table mixing cereal with more hope than milk. Humming a tune he had learned at school, Jade forced a smile while ruffling his hair, but inside she wrestled numbers: rent, groceries, overdue internet each. One a wave ready to drown her quiet resolve. The phone rang just as she opened a dented can of beans. A lawyer's voice, smooth and distant, informed her that her father, Silas Blake, had passed away in a small coastal town called Driftwood Bay. Jade's fingers tightened around the can opener. She had not spoken to Silas in years. They had argued the last time she visited. He was stubborn about his rusty gas station and refused to sell, even when money was thin. Now the lawyer explained that very station and its lingering debts were hers. The next afternoon, Jade and Rio crammed into an old bus that wheezed up winding roads toward Driftwood Bay. Strangers on board whispered about the poor girl who got stuck with a pile of junk. Jade heard them and stared out the foggy window, pretending the comments slid past like the passing pines. But each word settled in her chest. Doubts that had been whispers grew louder. A single mother, a dead-end job, and now a useless inheritance. Driftwood Bay greeted them with chipped paint and salty wind. They walked the final blocks to the station. The sign above the pumps read Blake Fuel, but most letters had fallen, leaving only B_L_K_U_L, gulls perched on sagging gutters. The office door creaked when Jade pushed it open, releasing a stale mix of gasoline and mold. Rio wrinkled his nose, yet tried to be brave, stepping over scattered receipts that littered the floor like wilted leaves. Jade's heart sank at the cracked windows, toppled shelves, an empty coffee pot still sitting where her father once filled cups for passing truckers. Two locals stopped on the sidewalk, gawking. One, an older man with a fishing cap, chuckled. "City girl thinks she can revive that fossil." The other shook her head. "She'll sell it for scrap within a week." Jade pretended not to hear, but Rio's small hand squeezed hers tighter. Inside the back office, Jade found her father's old swivel chair jammed against a desk covered in dust. She sat, letting the seat sigh beneath her. On the wall hung a photo of Silas holding baby Rio, both smiling, the station bright and tidy. Behind them, Jade felt tears threaten, but blinked them away. Guilt pressed hard. She had let distance settle like rust between them, and there was no chance to scrub it off now. Night arrived early, and they slept on camping mats in the office. Rain tapped the leaky roof, each drip a reminder of repairs she couldn't afford. Jade stared at the ceiling, replaying her father's stubborn laugh. He used to say, "Everyone values gold, but fuel keeps people moving." Yet even fuel could not keep this place alive. Still, why had he clung to it so fiercely? He seen that others did not. Morning light broke through a cracked pane, illuminating dust like tiny stars. Jade rose, determined to assess the damage. She lifted fallen shelves, swept shattered glass, and checked the pumps outside. Hoses were brittle, meters rusted. Repairing all of it felt as likely as lifting the ocean with a bucket. Jade exhaled, breath fogging in the cool air. While sweeping the front shop, Jade nudged a metal rack and heard a hollow thud beneath the floor. She paused, tapping the boards again. Another empty echo. Curiosity pushed fatigue aside, grabbing a flashlight. She knelt and pried at a loose floor plank using a screwdriver. The wood lifted with a crack, revealing darkness below. Rio crouched beside her, eyes wide. "What's down there, Mom?" Jade shone the beam into the narrow gap. A rectangle of rough plywood lay beneath, forming a makeshift lid. Etched into it with shaky letters was a single word: hope. Jade's pulse quickened. Out. With effort, she slid the lid aside. A small cavity appeared, just deep enough for a weathered tin box wrapped in oil-stained cloth. She lifted the box onto the counter. Rio watched, silent. The latch stuck, but finally popped open. Inside lay a leather notebook, a tarnished silver key, and a folded blueprint edged with grease. Jade opened the notebook first. On the first page, her father's bold handwriting read, "For Jade and Rio, because the future deserves light." Pages followed, filled with dates, sketches of gears, and equations that made little sense to her. But one phrase repeated: "Final prototype stored safe." Jade's hands trembled as she realized her father had been working on something secret, something he believed in enough to hide. She unfolded the blueprint next. It showed the gas station's layout, but marked an area beneath the old maintenance pit. A note beside it read, "Main chamber protect, at all costs." Jade traced the lines with her finger, her mind racing. Had he buried something valuable down there? But why here, and why not tell her? The silver key was tagged with a tiny number, matching a locker label scribbled on the blueprint. Jade glanced around the room, heart pounding. Outside, wind rattled. The sign and the townsfolk's laughter echoed faintly. They saw only rotted wood and rust, yet under her father's floorboards, hope quite literally waited. As dusk painted the bay in orange and pink, Jade stood before the grimy office window, clutching the notebook. She watched the sun dip behind distant cliffs. For the first time since the lawyer's call, she felt the spark of purpose rather than burden. This rundown gas station, the inheritance no one wanted, now held a mystery stitched together by her father's steady hands. Whether treasure or folly, Jade sensed it was meant for her and Rio alone. She turned to her son, who looked up with quiet trust. "We're staying," she said, voice steady. "We'll figure out what Grandpa left us." Rio's smile was small but bright, reflecting the faded neon sign outside. The station, once a symbol of useless weight, had become a riddle, and solving it might just change everything. Jade rose before dawn, her breath a pale cloud in the cold office as the first gulls shrieked above Driftwood Bay. The tin box from under the floor still rested on the counter where she and Rio had left it, the tarnished key glinting in weak light. Outside, mist hugged the cracked pavement, blurring the letters on the broken sign. Today, Jade decided she would follow the map and learn what waited under the station's skin of rust and dust. She brewed instant coffee on a camp stove, the smell filling the office. Rio rubbed his sleepy eyes, wrapped himself in a blanket, and shuffled to her side. "Are we treasure hunters now?" he asked. Jade smiled, tired but determined. "Like truth hunters," she said, pressing the notebook into her bag. The pages inside whispered of hidden chambers and a prototype her father called Beacon. What Beacon meant, she still didn't know, only that Silas had protected it with the word hope. After quick bowls of oatmeal, they stepped into gray daylight. Sea wind tugged at Jade's coat, while Rio's sneakers slid on damp concrete. The blueprint pointed to a maintenance pit in the back garage, a place Jade remembered from childhood visits. She pictured her father sliding under cars, humming too. A crackling radio, grease on his cheeks like war paint. Now the garage door hung crooked, metal teeth biting the ground. Jade heaved it upward, the rusted rollers shrieking in protest. Inside, the scent of old oil lingered. Tools lay scattered, some still coated with grime, others buried under sheets of newspaper dated years before. The inspection pit in the center was covered by heavy wooden planks. Jade knelt, hand tracing the grain. Just as on the blueprint, the planks bore small brass numbers. She matched them to notes in the journal. Remove panel 3, then 6. Following the sequence, she pried each board loose with a crowbar. Rio stood ready to drag them aside, his small muscles straining but eager. When the final plank lifted, darkness yawned below. Jade clicked on her flashlight, sending a beam into the pit. Metal ladder rungs glimmered, descending deeper than she expected. The original pit had been no more than 6 feet. This looked twice that. Moisture dripped from concrete walls into a shallow puddle at the bottom, echoing like distant footsteps. "Stay here till I check," Jade told Rio, but he shook his head fiercely. "Together," he insisted. She scanned the narrow space stable, though damp. "All right, together, but careful." They climbed down, boots scraping metal. At the base, Jade turned in a slow circle, light sweeping across the walls. Her beam caught a steel hatch set low, secured with a padlock whose number matched the tiny tag on Silas's key. Hands trembling, Jade fitted the key, turned with a dull click, the lock dropping into her palm. She pushed the hatch. It swung inward on silent hinges, revealing a short tunnel braced with timber. Rio squeezed her hand. "Mom, what if it's dangerous?" Jade took a steadying breath. "Then we'll leave." "But Grandpa built this for a reason." They ducked. Inside, stooping under low beams, the air felt cooler, tinged with salt and machine oil. After 10 paces, they emerged into a hidden chamber, carved from bedrock, no larger than a garden shed. A single lantern, long dead, hung from a hook. Swept her light over shelves lined with labeled jars, copper wire, bolts, tiny circuit boards. In the center stood a wooden crate waist high, the lid secured by wing nuts. On top lay another notebook, newer than the first, edges only lightly worn. Jade opened it. The title page read, "Beacon Project, Final Log." Beneath, her father's handwriting filled line after line. She read aloud, "If you're reading this, Jades, the world has told you to quit. But light lives in dark places." Beacon is a portable generator that feeds on small tidal shifts to create clean power. A tested output, 10 kilowatts per cycle. "I hid the prototype until investors stop laughing and start listening." Jade's pulse quickened. A tidal generator, small enough to fit in a crate, that was no dusty relic. It was potential gold. She unscrewed the wing nuts, lifted the lid, and gasped. Inside, cushioned by foam, rested a metal cylinder, the length of her forearm, blades folded, tight like petals. Wires coiled at one end, connecting to a compact battery pack. Rio's eyes widened.
"Aye."
"It's like a sea windmill," he whispered. Silas's notes claimed the device charged fully after just 3 hours in gentle surf. Jade imagined boats using beacon instead of diesel, houses lit by the movement of waves. Hope indeed. Jade's excitement battled rising worry. Could they protect this? Fix it? Prove its value? But answers would wait. First, she had to get the cylinder to safety. Lifting it carefully, she felt its surprising weight. "We need a dry place upstairs," she said. Together, they carried the crate pieces, notebooks and jars back through the tunnel, up the ladder, and into the office. Jade cleared a corner, stacking boxes to hide the prototype. For now, secrecy was their shield. Townspeople already doubted her ability to run a gas station. What would they do if they learned she held an invention worth fortunes? After hiding Beacon, Jade sank into her father's old chair, notebook open. She jotted a list. Find a marine engineer, test the device, patent if possible, and most urgent, restore the station enough to keep prying eyes out. Rio traced a blueprint margin, whispering, "Grandpa believed in us." Ow. Jade ruffled his hair. He believed in the future. Now it's our job to light it. The day pressed on. Jade and Rio replaced the planks over the pit, scrubbing away new footprints. Jade locked the garage and rigged a makeshift alarm with bells, a string, and Rio's marbles. Every small measure mattered. Twilight spilled orange across the bay. As they stepped outside, gulls wheeled overhead, unaware that beneath their wings a secret slept. On their walk back to a borrowed cot at the local hostel, Jade replayed the chamber's discovery. Doubt still gnawed at her. How would she fund repairs, secure patents, outsmart competition? Yet a stronger certainty bloomed. Beneath the concrete lay more than a machine. Her father had buried faith, wrapped in blueprints and oil-stained cloth, trusting that Jade would dig past fear to find it. She squeezed Rio's hand. "Tomorrow we start cleaning the storefront," she said. "People will come for fuel first. Later, they'll come for light." Rio grinned, the last rays of sun reflecting in his hopeful eyes. Jade looked back at The ragged silhouette of Blake Fuel. Cracks and rust still shouted failure. But now she heard another voice louder than Doubt Silas's steady promise. Light lives in dark places. And Jade vowed, beneath gathering stars, that she would not let that light fade. The news of Jade's discovery did not stay hidden for long. Early one morning, the Coastal Courier printed a short column. Single mother reopens ghost station. Claims new energy inside. No details about Beacon were shared, but the hint was enough. Laughter spilled from the diner where Jade once poured coffee. Regulars tapped the headline with greasy fingers and joked that she had probably found a rusty toy and was calling it science. The jeers drifted through town like sea fog, clinging to every doorway. At the hardware store, the clerk smirked when Jade asked for marine-grade sealant. Planning to waterproof your mistakes? He asked loud enough for 2 customers to hear. They chuckled. Jade kept her voice calm, counted the tubes of sealant, and paid in coins and small bills. Outside, she exhaled, telling herself that mockery was cheap while progress was costly. Rio waited by the bike rack, holding a length of rope they needed for the bell alarm. He sensed her tension but said nothing. The louder the jokes grew, the harder Jade worked. She scrubbed graffiti from pump 3 until her hands blistered. She rewired an ancient breaker box by watching free tutorial videos on an old phone balanced on a toolbox. At night, she read patent guidelines until the words swam. Rio practiced greeting imaginary customers, his voice ringing through the empty store. Welcome to Blake Fuel and Tide Power. How can we brighten your day? Jade smiled at the slogan, storing it away like ammunition. Mockery turned into meddling on a windy Friday. 3 men from Darrow Oil rolled into the lot, their black pickup shining like a threat. The tallest man, Mr. Daly, wore a smile as thin as fishing line. Heard you're starting a circus here, he said, looking around. We can buy this place, save you the trouble. Jade shook her head, not selling. Daly shrugged, produced a business card, and flicked it onto the counter. Call when you change your mind. Before inspectors shut you down for leaks, his words dripped false kindness. That evening, Jade found the alarm string severed and the garage door ajar. Nothing seemed missing, but footprints marked the dust near the hidden pit. Panic raced through her, cold and fast. As she checked the office, Beacon was still tucked behind stacked crates. Relief came, then anger. She wrote a note to herself. Reinforce locks, add motion light, call sheriff. The sheriff, however, was at the bar, listening to locals claim Jade stored dynamite under the floor. He laughed with them, saying he would look into it when pigs surf. Rumors spiraled. One story said Jade was building a bomb to blow the town off the map. Another claimed she filled the tanks with seawater to sell fake fuel. School children repeated the gossip, and Rio returned home quiet, shoulders slumped. Jade knelt beside him. People laugh when they are scared, she whispered. She unrolled the blueprint, showing him Beacon's design again. Understanding beats fear. We will help them understand. The next day, Lydia came back, fury clipped into each heel strike. The town council, she declared, scheduled a safety hearing about the station. You'll be forced to close until a certified engineer signs off. Jade held firm. Then I'll find an engineer. Lydia's eyes flashed. You'll find. Dead instead? She left a final warning. Humiliation is coming, and I won't shield you. Jade watched her drive away, dust swirling behind the wheels like angry smoke. Madness peaked when vandals painted the word fraud across the storefront. Windows. Rio woke Jade with a shout, and they hurried outside. Red paint dripped down the glass like blood. Jade's hands shook, but she grabbed buckets, brushes, and soap. Neighborhood kids on bikes circled, recording the scene on their phones, posting clips with mocking captions. Jade ignored them, scrubbing until dawn broke pink over the bay. When sunlight hit the wet glass, the last smear vanished. She and Rio stood back, exhausted yet unbroken. While they cleaned, a small crowd gathered part. Curious, part cruel. Jade surprised everyone by inviting them in. See for yourself, she said, voice steady. She led them to the pumps, explaining each repaired part. She opened the office door, showing tidy shelves of supplies. She did not reveal Beacon, but she spoke of a future demo. Some visitors scoffed, yet a few lingered, interest flickering. In their eyes, an older fisherman, Mr. Yen, asked if the station would stock propane for boats. Jade shook his weathered hand and promised to order some. Word of Mr. Yen's handshake reached others. 2 days later, Chef Maribel from the seaside cafe offered leftover soup for Rio and Jade when she heard they skipped meals to save money. Maribel also whispered that the council hearing would be strict but fair if Jade showed clear safety reports. Small kindnesses sprouted like weeds between cracks of cruelty, giving Jade hope that the madness might be turning. Still, danger pressed. Close. One midnight, Jade woke to smoke. A rag soaked in fuel burned near the garbage bin outside. She and Rio stamped it out, coughing in the harsh light of a single bulb. Jade filed a police report. The deputy shrugged, said fireworks caused. Many small blazes? Jade understood. Some people wanted the station gone before Beacon could shine. She responded with relentless motion. By week's end, she installed security cameras donated by Mr. Yen's nephew, who believed local businesses should help one. Another, she posted a simple sign: grand opening, soon fuel, coffee, and clean power demos. Be curious, not afraid. She pinned it over fresh paint where the red slur once bled. Every evening she read patents aloud to Rio, turning complex. Words into clear steps. File provisional claim. Submit schematics. Pay fee. Each crossed-off line weakened the chorus of doubt outside. Mockery had morphed into near madness, but Jade saw something vital beneath the chaos. Attention.
Ow.
People were watching, even if through narrowed eyes. When the right moment came, when Beacon hummed atop the tide, lighting the station without, a drop of diesel that attention would flip like a switch, from ridicule to awe. One quiet Sunday, as gulls drifted over calm water, Jade and Rio stood on the roof. They had carried Beacon upstairs in a sealed pack, preparing for its first ocean test. The town below was still unaware of the device now facing the horizon. Jade inhaled sea air thick with possibility. They laugh until they learn, she murmured, tightening the mounting bracket. Rio nodded, hope shining brighter than any dawn they had seen yet. And his mother and son anchored the future, too rusted. Steel, the tide rolled in, steady and unstoppable. Dawn arrived wearing pearl gray light, soft as a whisper across the rooftops of Harbor Ridge. Jade stood beside the new flag she had painted, a simple wave inside a gear watching the colors wake. The grand opening banner flapped above the pumps, clean letters promising fuel, coffee, and tide power. The station no one wanted was ready to breathe. Inside, Rio adjusted the last price tag on the snack shelf. His hands shook from excitement, not fear. Along the counter sat 3 mason jars, one for school books, one for repairs, and one labeled community seed. Rio had chosen the names himself because, he said, a place should save for its neighbors too. At 7 sharp, Jade unlocked the front door. The bell chimed, a bright, clear note that bounced down the highway. For a heartbeat, no one entered, and silence pressed close. Jade reminded herself of all the steps that had led here, the sealed tanks, the polished pumps, the patent forms. Mailed off 2 nights ago. She steadied her breath. Then Diesel Danny's fishing truck rolled onto the forecourt. The old man eased out, cane tapping the concrete. Heard you sell honest petrol, he grunted. Jade smiled and guided him to pump one. The nozzle clicked. The meter spun, and the first sale in 15 silent years glowed on the screen. Danny paid in crumpled bills and asked for a black coffee as strong as your will. Laughter from both of them chased the last bit of tension away. Within an hour, 5 more drivers stopped. Word spread by phone and by curious eyes that watched from porches down the road. Maribel from the Seaside Cafe arrived with a tray of dialed muffins. She traded them for 2 gallons of diesel and promised to send tourists their way. Jade placed the muffins beside the register with a handwritten note, free with any refill. At noon, the town council's safety officer, Miss Len, pulled up in a city van. She carried a clipboard, weighted with forms. Weeks earlier, Jade would have felt her stomach twist, but now she stepped forward calmly. Together they inspected every corner: filters, breakers, fire points. Rio demonstrated the backup shutoff he had wired under Henry's guidance. Miss Len tapped boxes on her sheet, her face unreadable. The final stop was the rooftop. Jade led her up the metal ladder while Rio stayed below, greeting customers. The sea spread wide to the horizon, gulls circling. Beacon rested on its mount, small but sturdy polished bronze gleaming under the sun. Cables ran from its core down into a battery bank inside the storage room. Jade explained how the tides turned hidden gears, how the simple design meant low cost and easy repair. Miss Len placed a small meter on the terminal and watched the numbers climb as water tugged the submerged rotor. Voltage steady, emissions 0. She lowered the meter, green jacket flapping in the breeze, and for the first time, she smiled. "Looks safe," she said, initialing the final box. "Looks smart too." They climbed down, and Miss Len pinned a temporary approval notice beside the door. Rio whooped loud enough for a passing cyclist to cheer with him. Jade let herself close her eyes a second, feeling relief settle like warm sand. The afternoon brought a different visitor, Lydia. Her luxury car stopped at the edge of the lot, engine idling. She stepped out, high heels sinking slightly into gravel. Jade wiped her hands and walked over. There was no anger left in her, only clarity. Lydia glanced around at the line of cars, at Beacon turning quietly above. "You did it," she said, voice low. "I misjudged." Jade simply nodded. Lydia reached into her coat and produced a thin envelope. "This is the remainder of your father's tool collection," she said. "Saw it in storage and thought you should have it." Jade accepted the envelope. Inside were 2 small keys and a faded photo of her father smiling next to an old lathe. Gratitude rose unexpected in her chest. "Thank you," she answered. Lydia looked as if she might say more, then thought better, and drove away. Evening painted the sky gold, and the station lights clicked on, powered partly by Beacon's stored energy. A soft glow wrapped the building, calling to travelers like a lighthouse on land. Jade brewed a fresh pot of coffee and poured herself the first cup of the day. She stepped outside and leaned against pump 3. Rio joined her, hands smelling of window cleaner. Cars still arrived, but there were pauses now, pockets of quiet between engines. Mother and son watched the horizon where sea met sky, both edges tinted rose. "Remember when they called it junk?" Rio asked. Sipping coffee that tasted of hard work and salt air. "Junk is just treasure with no story," she said. "We gave it a story." Footsteps scuffed behind them. Mr. Yen, the fisherman, approached with 2 buckets of clams. A trade he offered. "Is fuel credit for dinner?" Jade laughed and shook his hand. Trades, she realized, were seeds of community. She directed him to the counter where Rio issued the first store voucher, handwriting neat and proud. Night deepened. Gulls quieted. Jade flipped the switch that connected Beacon's battery bank to the exterior sign. Blue letters lit up against the dark, Blake Tide, station open. The glow reflected in the window glass, in Jade's eyes, in Rio's wide grin. For the first time, the old forecourt felt not lonely, but alive, pulsing with stories ready to begin. Many miles away, a clerk at the patent office stamped Jade's provisional file, signing it a number that would soon appear in public records. The idea born beneath cracked concrete now had a place in the world's library of invention. Back at the station, Jade locked the doors for the night. Inside, she and Rio counted the day's earnings, more than she had made in any single shift at the diner. They divided bills between the jars, clinking coins like small bells of promise. Rio added the first receipt to a scrapbook labeled Our Legacy. Before heading home, Jade took a marker and wrote on the chalkboard near the door. Tomorrow's tides, high at 6:14 a.m., low at 12:42 p.m., come see clean power in motion. Beneath it, she scribbled coffee for early birds. She turned off the interior lights, but Beacon's gentle hum continued, feeding electrons into silent circuits. Outside, the sign glowed steady, watching over the empty road. As Jade and Rio walked toward the bus stop, the station shrank behind them, yet seemed to shine brighter. Jade felt her father's presence in the rhythmic rush of waves, in the grease. Still faint under her fingernails, in the simple pride filling her chest. There would be hard days ahead, repairs, bills, storms, but the foundation was set, made of grit, water, and belief. A new legacy had begun, and it was written not in stone or steel alone, but in every person who would stop for fuel, for coffee, or just to stand on the roof and see how tides can light the dark.